Hello and welcome to Sam Not So Wise. My name is Sam. Today I'm slightly nervous because this is a potentially controversial topic that I'm going to be talking about. A little bit complicated, not easy, no easy answers. But I was basically quite surprised at something. So my last video was my top 10 authors of all time. And my first ever video was my top 10 sci-fi fantasy series of all time. I'll put a link to both in the description, of course. And I realized that of the 19 authors I mentioned, 19 because obviously honorable mentions are a thing, 19 authors, 17 of them were white men. So, basically 90% essentially of the authors that I consider my favorites or the works of my favorites were written by white men. And I was just quite surprised because I like to think that I'm very explorative in my reading and just my life in general. So I was quite surprised that there's not even just more women, So anyway, it's already getting complicated, but I just want to say that I'm not like reprimanding myself for this or anybody else who may, have a similar looking top whatever. I just wanted to talk about a few thoughts of mine, nothing heavy, nothing preachy. I don't really have the language or knowledge to talk about this in a nuanced way or without getting too emotional. So I just want to talk about a few thoughts about why this might have happened. I want to give some recommendations of great books that I've read that are written by non-white men. If anybody else is looking to, diversify and expand their TBR. And then I want to talk about some potential reads that I'm going to be looking into very soon. So yes, with much further ado, let's talk about this very easy subject. So yes, as I said, this isn't going to get overly preachy or anything like that. I just wanted to express my thoughts when this happened. Because, like I said, I was very surprised. It's just not very like me. I like experiencing new and different things, different perspectives, not just my own or, living in an echo chamber. That holds no interest to me whatsoever. I love experiencing the world through different people's eyes. I was especially surprised that there was only one woman well, she was on both lists, but out of the 19 authors, there's only one woman. And that surprises me. Because I consider myself a feminist, I believe that women should have equal rights. It's funny because my wife, when we first started to getting together, she's a very, strong feminist woman, all the praise to her, that very early in our relationship or when we were getting together, I said, I'm a feminist. And she said that was just like, okay, I like you, this is gonna work. Yeah, I consider this like an important part of me. So I have previously tried to expand my horizons in my reading and reading more women. So again, very surprised there's only one. But also with the non-white authors, I was quite surprised because I love different cultures. I love traveling and I love seeing how different people live and their different perspectives. Whenever we go traveling, I love traveling. Me and my wife love traveling and seeing new places. So when we go traveling, we like to not go to the big places. We like to go to the smaller places and kind of really experience what people live like. For example, we went to Japan on our honeymoon, and Tokyo was our least favorite place because it felt the least Japanese. It was still great, obviously, but that felt the least Japanese to us, so we were least interested in that. So yeah, I'm quite surprised that only one non-white author, and he's British, but he was born in Japan. I was just surprised because I love reading from other cultures. So yeah, I'm just shocked. I just want to reassert, probably many times during the video, that I don't blame myself for this or anybody else. Especially if you grew up in the West, because this is obviously a historical thing. There's a prominence of white men in almost everything for a really, really, really long time. It's historical, it's sociological. Right now, like I said, I don't really have the language to express myself properly or the time to do it if I wanted to, which I do. I do. Maybe one day in the future, when I feel more confident about talking about these things, I'll talk about it. So yeah, I just want to reassert that. But I'm super excited because there is a rise in the variety of cultures being explored in sci-fi and fantasy in particular, which is my wheelhouse. So more authors of different nationalities are rising to prominence in this field, which is so exciting. You know, the world is becoming more aware that this is a problem as well. So more people are seeking out authors of different backgrounds. And also a lot of people looking back at works that may have been ignored because of, you know, history and how things have typically been. And this is super exciting. You know, one thing that I always see in the wonderful land of Facebook in the comments there, where all the healthy conversations happen, is the question of choice, and basically not choosing authors based on the color of their skin or their gender or their sexuality or anything like that. You should choose the stories because you find the concepts interesting to you, and that's why you should read the books. And I agree to a certain extent. That is basically what I've been doing. I've been reading books that I think sound interesting. That's a fair enough argument, but I think we also need to recognize that many authors don't get the same chances. And in that way, we're only missing out because there are so many authors that aren't getting the same chance as others. And so these great stories aren't coming to prominence, and we're just missing out. And that's a bad thing. So maybe we should look for more, in different cultures to what we are used to. So yes, I'm going to ruin my TBR by trying to increase my diversity. That's basically the outcome of this, of me realizing that I only read white men or whatever. And I'm excited because there's so many new worlds I can explore. As I mentioned earlier, I want to go through some authors who are not white men that I have really enjoyed in the past. This is not me trying to virtue signal or anything, or trying to give myself a pat on the back. This is just for anyone who is feeling similarly to me and wants to look for more books written by women or not white people, or both, So let's start with the obvious one, which was on both of my top 10s, which is Robin Hobb. If you like huge emotional character-based fantasies, you should read her works. She is excellent, an amazing prose writer. Kazuo Ishiguro was in my top 10 authors of all time, and he is a brilliant atmospheric writer with lots of thematic work, short books, so you should check him out. He is excellent. I've read quite a bit of Margaret Atwood. I mentioned the Mad Adam trilogy in one of my underrated videos. I'll put a link to that in the description, and that is a great post-apocalyptic trilogy. And I've read 4 others of her which are more like contemporary, and they're always really interesting, and she's got quite a fun way of looking at the world, and it's very feminist as well if you're interested in that kind of stuff. I've read some N.K. Jemisin. One of the series I wasn't a big fan of, but the Broken Earth series is an excellent fantasy series, and just ignore all the complaints about the second person perspective. There are a few chapters of them, but if you read through the series, you'll realize why, and it will absolutely blow your mind by the end of it. And also, in general, the series is really fun and different as well. The magic is really cool. The world is different. There's basically an apocalyptic world as well, but they just keep happening. Anyway, Ursula Le Guin. I've read The Left Hand of Darkness, which is an absolutely brilliant sci-fi book, and Earthsea. I've read the first 4 books of those, which are really whimsical, beautiful, old school sci-fi, which is great for all age ranges, and it's just very historically important. But her sci-fi is very intellectual stuff, and I really need to read more. I've read 2 Emily St. John Mandel books recently, and that's like really great low sci-fi stuff. So stuff that is set within our world, and kind of like not too far in the future, so you can kind of possibly see it happening. So that's really interesting as well. I've read the Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee, which I enjoyed. It's not one of my favorites like everybody else, but I enjoyed it. And if you're looking for gangster-based urban fantasy, it's a really good story for you. I read Kindred by Octavia Butler, which is a really deep and depressing look into slavery in the US in the 19th century, I believe. I can't quite remember. I read a book by Claire North recently. Check out my September wrap-up if you want to know more about that. But she is an exciting writer, really exciting stories. And I've read a few other classics and stuff, which I won't continue to go through now. So now I'll talk about what I'm going to be reading and how my TBR has slightly changed. It's not completely changing because that's impossible, and I still will be reading books written by white men because there are plenty of great authors that I want to read and great works. So that's not going to go out the window. I'm not just going to suddenly change into only non-white men books. Also, something that will define how much I'm going to read is that I'm applying for university, and all being well, I'll be starting in January and I'll be learning English. Yes, I know English, but I don't know English good. So I'm going to be studying academic English, and that's going to affect a lot of my reading. So it's going to be really difficult, but I'm going to give it a try. The first one's easy because it's going to be the next book I'm going to read, and that's The Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler, and I am so excited. This has been on my TBR for a really long time, so I'm going to be reading that in a few days. I'll be picking that up, and if I love it, which I'm sure I will read the sequel to it, probably also in November. Dandelion Dynasty by Ken Liu. That has been on my radar for a little while now, and it was kind of teetering on the edge of being knocked straight to the top. And now that I've realized this, it is going straight to the top. I think this is going to be my priority series for the start of next year, Dandelion Dynasty. I've heard so many great things about it and its influences from Chinese history, so that is a definite for next year. I'm super interested in Samuel Delany, who is like an old school sci-fi writer who apparently wrote lots of like really deep and difficult sci-fi, which I love. So I plan on reading his books kind of in between series and when I can squeeze them in. I really want to get to more Ursula K. Le Guin, her sci-fi works in particular. I really need to read The Dispossessed, so that is a high priority for next year as well. After reading that Claire North book last month, I think it was, and really enjoying it, I really am eager to pick up more of hers, so I'll be keeping an eye out for deals on them because that's how I roll. And again, Emily St. John Mandel, I feel similarly about her. I'll be looking for her books. Ada Palmer's Terra Incognita, I think it's called. Google it. I'm really interested in her books. She has like a 4-book sci-fi series which is supposed to be really deep and really epic and grand and makes your mind explode. So I'm really interested in looking at her books. Janny Wirtz, everybody's been talking about her in the BookTube community recently, so I really want to be trying her out. And Nnedi Okorafor, really apologise if I butchered that, which I probably did. She sounds like she's got some really interesting sci-fi and fantasy books, so I'm eager to pick her up. And after going to Japan, I am a Japanophile now. I love Japan. It's such a beautiful place. So I want to read some books by Japanese authors. I've read one Murakami before and it was extremely weird. So I'm kind of not too eager picking him up, but I will. But any recommendations for other Japanese authors of any genre, I don't care, just Japanese authors, as long as it's not cozy. I'm not interested in cozy fantasy or anything. So yeah, let me know about any Japanese authors. So I think that'll just about do for today. That's enough rambling from me as usual. I just want to reaffirm that I'm not trying to have a dig at anybody. I'm not trying to have a dig at myself. This is entirely personal. I was just very shocked at the lack of diversity in my reading tastes, and I want to expand my horizons, and I very much encourage other people to do so too. I'm not saying you have to, but I think it is good for the world if we do try to look outside our own perspectives. So basically this was just a big cry out for more recommendations. Obviously my TBR is too long, but it always will be, and TBRs are fluid, and that's what I love about them. I'm grateful for it. So let me know if any of the authors I've mentioned about who I want to read, who I should prioritize, who should move up the list. Let me know of any more interesting ones I should read. And thank you for watching this video. If you've made it this far, I super appreciate it. Like and subscribe and join me for more videos in the future. And goodbye for now.